I run the Office Envisioning team at Microsoft, and our job is to look ahead and explore the future of work. What do we think everyday productivity scenarios might look like 5 to 10 years from now? And we do that through prototyping. But before we can even start any of that, we have to ask ourselves what words like this even mean today, because they don't mean the same thing anymore. We know that work isn't a purely utilitarian thing. The Pope himself said that without work, there is no dignity. We spend a large part of our lives trying to be recognized, be a part of something, to make a difference. So we know it plays a large role in our lives as human beings, but the environment we work in is changing, and it's changing pretty significantly. The first of these changes is this massive shift from the age of information scarcity to information abundance. There's an exponential increase in the speed and volume of information. By 2020, the digital universe will have grown by a factor of 10. It's going to be about 44 zettabytes. That's 44 billion terabytes. It's doubling in size every 2 years, which is insane. 28 of that is going to be company managed. And so imagine you work at one of these companies. Good luck knowing that that piece of crucial data you need exists, let alone finding it. And the volume of communications is also exploding. Let's look at email. The distraction caused by the average 7 to 11 emails that we all get in our inboxes reduces your working IQ by 10 points. That's 3 times worse than being stoned. This is bad news. So the volume of data and conversations has clearly passed the threshold of our ability as humans to deal with it. We talk about the new normal being about just-in-time knowledge management. And we think this is going to dramatically change both the pace of work and how we work. We're going to need new ways to stay on top of that river of real-time information, to harness it, to make sense of it, to derive meaning and not get distracted and lose focus. But speed and volume aren't the only challenge. Socially networked communications are rapidly changing the very structure of the organizations that we work in. Information flows much faster through networks than it does through traditional point-to-point tools like email. And this is shifting knowledge transfer from linear distribution to dynamic participation. And because networks are more open and transparent by nature, they actually unlock tacit knowledge. They unlock the tacit knowledge of the people in the network. And so what happens is that responsiveness, learning are accelerated, people feel more engaged. And this is more than just a change in communication tools. It's actually causing massive stress in hierarchies that were designed to control information flow, especially when the world around you is moving faster than you are. So this is General Stanley McChrystal. The most hierarchical people on earth, the US Army, realized the power of this. When McChrystal was leading Joint Special Operations Command in Iraq with NATO, he realized that they were a hierarchy fighting a network. And that network was Al-Qaeda, of course. And to fight a network, they had to think like a network. So he did something unheard of. He switched his communications protocols from a need-to-know basis, which is standard in the Army, right, to a need-not-to-know basis. And suddenly they were engaging and reaching all kinds of people within their own organization who could reach back and help them that they would have otherwise never reached, just by switching to need-not-to-know. They built trust, they aligned purpose, but most importantly, McChrystal talks about this idea of shared consciousness. They created a shared consciousness in their organization. They were suddenly able to make decisions much more rapidly at the edges of the organization without going up and down the hierarchy. And they became much more effective as a team and much more responsive. So in the networked world, we see the opportunity for value creation shifting from the individual to the collective. In the US, 40 to 50% of the workforce is expected to become contingent and independent workers by 2020. That's a huge number. So these people are going to play a major role in tomorrow's workforce. And instead of the traditional static hierarchical teams on the left here, we see people increasingly using networks to form teams dynamically around projects as needed, even within organizations, bringing experts from multiple disciplines and even multiple organizations together. And this is, of course, much more like what we traditionally call the Hollywood model. And this means that teams are becoming more important and collaboration is becoming more important. And in fact, it seems that the skills that are going to matter in the 21st century are going to be empathy, compassion, trust, and collaboration. We're going to need to hire people differently and reward people differently. And we're already seeing major enterprises switch their reward systems to reflect this. Because these skills were the soft skills of the past. They were the ones that were nice to have, but they're going to be the ones that lead to the hard metrics and hard outcomes that matter going forwards. And this leads us to our third trend area. The workplace is broken. So with the mobile revolution in full swing, you all know this statistic. With the mobile revolution in full swing, we can work from anywhere today. And if we can work from anywhere, why go to the office? And we believe that the explosive growth in co-working spaces gives us a clue. In a recent global census, 96% of respondents cited that the thing they valued most in a co-working space was the community of innovation. So people value and choose spaces that give them access to new knowledge, that expose them to different expertise, and that accelerate their learning. And this type of knowledge sharing still happens best through personal interactions as people work together and collide and connect in the workspace. Whether on the production line, where this happens too, or in a white-collar office, this type of tacit knowledge exchange generates tremendous value and is incredibly important for innovation. So we need to stop seeing the workspace as a cost, as square feet. And to quote Ben Weber and Jennifer Magnolfi from a recent article in HBR, we need to start seeing it as a communication tool designed to support our human interactions. So these shifts that we discussed today create a radically different work environment. About 100 years ago, Frederick Winslow Taylor showed up at the workspace with his stopwatch, and he basically founded the efficiency movement. And we still run companies the same way today, to do things repetitively, at scale, with maximum efficiency. And this is no longer the best strategy in the information-abundant world. In fact, finding the answers together is a better strategy and mindset than struggling alone. Networking and trust yield better outcomes than protectionism, and decisions are increasingly made at the edges, empowering and engaging employees. And companies that operate this way are ultimately more resilient and responsive than brittle hierarchies that are finely tuned for efficiency. In fact, we see that they often sacrifice efficiency of process to achieve effectiveness of outcome. And this seems counterintuitive. What's the difference? So, quick example, Zara runs its production lines at about 80% utilization, which is way below optimal, completely inefficient. They're in touch with their shop floors every day. They know what is and isn't selling in each retail outlet. And that information is fed in. Teams at the edges can instantly respond and redesign items without going up and down the hierarchy. And the slack in the production line allows them to go straight into production. And as a result, they have this incredibly effective way of putting items back on the shelves that have been redesigned in response to what is and isn't selling. And they've done that by sacrificing efficiency. Make sense? So in this world where there's this huge focus on effectiveness and responsiveness and on the learning organization, we believe productivity requires a fresh definition. We think that productivity is going to be centered around people, not desks and documents. And because we get stuff done together more than we do alone, we believe that it's going to need to focus on supporting our activities, on helping us achieve our goals as human beings, as teams, as groups of people. Whether that's arranging the annual school auction or whether it's that big project at work, we believe that it will have conversations as its backbone. And for us, it's going to be defined by 4 key themes. We're going to need to collaborate with more people across more boundaries to solve bigger problems. And so we're going to need work tools and environments that provide much better ways of coming together and working together. Attention is the new scarce resource. And so we're going to need intelligent tools that understand our context, help us make the most of every moment, and take advantage of that river of information that we were talking about. And with routine work largely automated, which we heard all morning today, we believe that the emphasis, as Ariana said, is going to be on creative work. And because of that, we're going to need tools and environments that let us work naturally and organically the way our minds work, and with an emphasis on fluid mobility of experience.